I'm Ryan McCurdy, writer-director of Pears.
I'm Lily McCurdy, producer of Pears.
And you're watching GenreTainment.
And here are your hosts, Marx and Julie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to GenreTainment, and this is your co-host, Marx, joined as always with
co-host Julie. GenreTainment is where we talk about what's happening in the world of books, film, TV, and tabletop role-playing games. We give you interviews with writers, game designers, directors, producers, and actors in both independent and not-so-independent creations.
On this episode, we have a fun interview with writer and director Ryan McCurdy and producer or co-producer Lily McCurdy to talk about their new movie, Pears. We actually met, Ryan, met both of you really a long time ago. back when you were in college. So it's been fun to see you grow as filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you enjoy our episodes, please consider subscribing or following us. And we have our Patreon you can join if you would like some bonus content. The link to that is also in the show description. Now let's introduce our guests, Ryan and Lily. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on?
Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about your new movie, Pears?
So Pears is a comedy. It's what do you just call it, like a detective noir of sorts. It's about a inept PI. Goes by Perry Matthews, and people nickname him Pears. So the movie's called Pears. And he's been struggling through his life, and he's trying to find the best job for himself, and eventually kind of lands on what his brother-in-law does, which is become a PI. And so in the course of that, his brother-in-law goes missing. So his sister, who's very pregnant, is like, hey, I'm pregnant. I need someone to go look for him. And obviously the cops aren't doing anything. So then he is kind of put on the case to follow his footsteps, so to speak, not only actually, but metaphorically speaking. But in the course of doing so, he runs into a bunch of different hijinks. And eventually is able to kind of try to fill the gumshoes he never really thought he had.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And this is your first feature, right? You directed?
This first feature, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but we've known you for years. We've seen you, from the beginning with your shorts. Julie's acted in one of your shorts.
Julie was in one of my first short films. Yeah, like long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started in filmmaking then, and kind of what got you interested in filmmaking in the first place, and then how did you get started with those first shorts?
So let's see. It's before I met you. So I was in probably right out of high school. I had some friends that wanted to put together. They were like one of my buddies who was putting together these little short movie type things, and they were more like, "Hey, we're gonna start a little show called Welcome Back to Nowhere." And it was just, or Welcome to Nowhere. And it was just us doing silly stuff during the summer. And he put it together, and he had like an intro, and it was like, we felt like we were on a TV show. It was really cool. And then about a year after that, we had done that. Then two of our other friends that we knew from high school, they had just come back from college, and it was the next summer, and we were like, hey, let's actually like make like a actual like web series, like an actual show. And then this is like right around the time like Sunny in Philadelphia had just come out, and I think also that a lot of it was about that time when like people were starting to be like, oh yeah, we can use our DV cameras and start like shooting stuff, and Hollywood's going to accept it because like that's what Hollywood was into at that time. And so we were like, yeah, we can make our own show. So we ended up doing like 2 like 30-minute episodes. We had written more, but we never got to that. So that was kind of my first intro, and that was around like 2008 or so. And then I went to USI, and at that same time at USI, I had made some other like small shorts. My first like big short that I did was called the Linville Incident, and it was kind of like a rip off of an X-Files, which supposedly I have that on today, but it was kind of a rip of an X-Files episode meets kind of like Erie, Indiana type thing, where it was a friend goes missing, kind of like Pears, and he's kind of trying to solve what happened to him, why, and there's aliens involved. And then Julie, I think you played one of the neighbors that lived in this town, and then at the very end of the movie, it turns out you're also one of the aliens.
And I get
if
shot.
I remember correctly. You got shot. That's right. You got shot. I do remember that. That was a fun shoot.
And that was back 2011, 2012.
That was 2000. Yeah, it was around 2011. Yeah. But yeah, that was ages ago. That was like my first short film, and I had done several shorts after that. And then we did the at USI we had a filmmakers club, and we had every year since I think around that time, or 2009, I think we did a film festival, and I think Linville was in that film festival during one of those years. But yeah, that ever since then I had been making short films kind of year after year after year. And then I hadn't made anything for a while, and I think when got and then I moved to Atlanta, but then around that time I was thinking, I think it's time I probably should make a feature film, and I wanted to, so we ended up coming back to Evansville and shooting a feature.
Nice.
So yeah.
And Lily, did you just inherit this, or were you ever interested in film before you met him?
So interestingly enough, I actually met him from another student film that was going on. He was going to work crew, and I was cast as one of the leads. And so I just friended everyone's name that I saw on the list. And he was like,
she's cute.
Who are you? He's like, who are you?
Who's this random girl friending me?
The best part of it all was the movie never even got made. So it was just to set us up.
That was the only reason.
Yeah.
Only reason. We should have done at our wedding. We should have invited that guy. We didn't do that.
We didn't do that. No, we didn't.
Oh, oops.
But I've always loved acting. And so, he gave me a little bit of an outlet for that every once in a while. Yeah. But I think with our temperaments, it's best if we're both behind the camera at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's hard to be to be a husband and be like, no, do it this way. And then, of course, you get in a fight and be like, you're being mean. I'm trying to direct
you. Yeah.
Watch that tone. You're coming back with me tonight.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Where did the idea for the film Pears come from?
So it was a combination of stuff. From the idea of wanting to do, I'd kind of around that time, early in, I'd gotten into film noir and liked those types of stories, specifically the detective kind of stories. And a couple of years ago, I was going back and forth from work, and I started listening to Libby a lot, and so we were listening to audiobooks, and I started getting on to listening to Raymond Chandler, who's kind of like the godfather of noir in a sense. He wrote The Big Sleep. He wrote Farewell, My Lovely, which became Murder, My Sweet. He wrote The Long Goodbye, which is another famous one of his. But he had written several of these stories, and they were all dealing with this specific character of Philip Marlowe, who was the hard-boiled detective that most people refer to when they're talking about film noir. And I wanted to write something like that, and I had an idea. I'm like, what if I wrote a modern PI? What would the modern version of that classic 40s PI kind of be like? At the same time, one of our other mutual friends, Kevin Arnold, who plays Pears in the movie, I knew I wanted Kevin involved. He'd been in several of my other short films in the past. He actually was a roommate here in Atlanta for a period of time as well. So I knew I wanted Kevin involved, and Kevin really kind of leans better into the comedic, in my opinion. So as I started writing, I had Kevin in mind.
If you're going to do what I do, you have to be more careful. This isn't the movies.
You could have told me that before Yoga Pants unleashed her pinup aggression.
Well, next time, sit in the back seat. It's harder to get noticed. It's going to leave a sick bruise.
You think it'll score me sympathy points with the ladies?
And then I had a couple other people like Leo Kempf and Joe Gilpatrick. They were my first choice, or I knew them and they were great, and so I wanted to put them in something. And that's kind of the where Sly and Richie had come from.
Waking up, Sly! Look, he's waking up!
I planned for him to wake up. Sly always has a plan.
How'd you know when he was gonna wake up?
They always wake up about an hour after the chloroform.
Sly, you're a genius.
Sly knows he's a genius. Sly never lies.
Is that what the babe at the bar told you when she gave you that stuff?
Shut up, Richie. Now watch.
But yeah, that was kind of just like the beginning of it, was really like liking film noir and those detective stories, but then kind of wanting to go in a little more comedic route, a little more fun, but also kind of making a little bit more closer to like a modern film or modern take on detective stories.
And it was all filmed in Evansville, Indiana, right?
Yes, with the exception of one scene that we had to film in Owensboro because of the location. But I mean, that's a stone throw.
It's almost the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as Evansville. So yeah,
it's the same area.
Yeah, same area.
Same area. No one's gonna fault you on that. Hopefully, so.
Yeah, we were having fun noticing some of the locations.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's at Northbrook. That's by Schnucks. And oh, we know where Secret Headquarters is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what equipment did you use to film this?
So what did we shoot the movie on? So we shot the movie on the camera that we're actually using for this interview is a Blackmagic 4K cinema camera, pocket cinema. It's not a pocket. I don't know why they call it a pocket camera, but yeah, it's a pocket cinema camera. We shot on that.
How big is it? How big is this pocket?
Yeah, right. Like if you have like a Jinko, Jinko jeans, yeah, you could fit it. Not today's standard pocket size, but yeah. But we shot it on that camera. Only had like a handful of lenses, tripod, and then I just maybe 3 or 4 lights that we used for most of it, and that was pretty much it. I mean, it wasn't as far as gear goes. I kept it kind of minimal because I knew it was going to be I had to fit everything in the Kia that he drives in the movie. That was my car that we brought up, and most of the equipment I had to keep in that car. So you can imagine I had to kind of condense as much as I could. But yeah, that was pretty much the equipment we used for the whole film.
Yeah, great. It looked pro. Like sometimes you can tell when you look at something, it's like that's kind of low budget. It's like washed out.
Yeah.
Your coloring was good. Everything was solid. Your sound was really good, which is something that.
That is a huge pet peeve of mine. If the sound is bad, I cannot watch something.
Yeah.
Well, it's relief hearing it from you guys because, like, I've had Kevin's family has told him like the sound's not that great. I'm like, what specifically are we talking about? Because, but yeah, we were able to have lav mics for all the actors, or not for all the actors. I had 2 lav mics that I had bought. That was kind of part of the budget too, was making sure we had that because I knew there was going to be some scenes and shots that I'm like. And working in the industry, that like having a lav mic is such a game changer because you can get stuff on a boom, but you don't always catch everything. And then especially if a character is really far away, the boom's not going to be useful for that. So I wanted to make sure we had that option. So pretty much in most of the scenes were like 2 actors for the most part. So it was usually like, okay, whoever's speaking the most, you're going to get a boom mic, you're going to get a lav mic. If we're going into coverage for this shot, swapping the mics, you're getting the 2 mics now. And I had to train her on how to pretty much mic everybody. Did you find that a hard process?
No, I learned how to layer the tape in the correct way. I would still make sure someone double checked my work, but yeah.
But
wasn't there a name for that? The way you did it?
A moleskin sandwich.
The sandwich. That's what it was.
Moleskin sandwich. So I just had we had a roll of moleskin, had some we had a little kit together so that everybody could do it. And actually by the end of the movie, I think most of the main actors who were on could do it themselves. I'm like, hey, can you mic yourself? So they would know what to do. But that was really a game changer for the whole movie. So I appreciate that you guys have at least noticed that it sounds pretty good, I think, overall. Especially for a low budget indie, I should say, specifically. But
our big screen TV, it didn't.
It was fine. And if you don't mind us asking, roughly what kind of budget did you work with?
Oh, so we had the grand total of $3,000 at our expense. I had saved up some money, but she was kind of the bookkeeper here and made sure that I stayed. Well, you didn't tell me to stay under budget. You were just like. How much? What do you need to use?
Don't put us in debt.
No,
because it's all our money. But no, I think you made really wise purchases, and even some of the equipment that we purchased, I know is going to be used in other capacities. So I think a lot of the budget went to food.
Yeah, it was like, what did you say? It was like $2,000 was just the food alone.
Probably close to 2,000.
Yeah.
That's where
There's
a
always
lot of it comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always lots of like little things. Like the food was one for sure. And then we had to use the light. One of the lights that I'm using for this, I bought specifically because I knew I needed a really punchy, strong light for a lot of the shots to have just to make sure people looks good. And then there was other things like the sound equipment was one, but the hard drives, that's the thing I think people forget is like, you're going to need to buy hard drive space for, especially if you're making a movie, and then not just one hard drive, but multiples, just in case one goes down and crashes, you have a backup of everything. So those were kind of like the couple of the big things were just hard drive space and food.
He definitely came in with the catalog of equipment, which helped a lot. He had some good stuff to work with. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, once you go 4K higher, I mean, that's going to eat up your hard drives super fast.
Eat up everything.
Yep. Yeah, I always like to bring stuff like that up because it just to show people who might be listening or watching that, you can make films. You make really good films without having to spend a lot of money. So you don't need millions of dollars.
No, I think as long as you have a good, I think if you have a good script, good story, and that kind of, I think that's one of the heavier things. Good sounds, another big one. But as far as, and then a lot of, because I think some people's concern is always like, if you're going to pay actors or not. And I know that is concern with a lot of people, but fortunately we had a lot of people that we're friends with and wanted to be a part of the movie. And I think that really helps.
Yeah, that does. And you fed them. That's a big,
it's a big fed them. You'd make sure they were fed. So that was good.
Always feed your cast and crew. It'll make them a lot happier. One thing or a few things that stood out to me too that I really liked was like the music and the transition effects he had, like for when time went by, or that one where he's driving and you're messing with the speed and everything, you flip it and stuff. I thought that was really cool. So who did your music and whose idea was to do that editing transition effect?
So the music was done by our friend Daniel Roach that I met through. We also met at USI many, many years ago. Daniel was I met him at the TV program, like our USI TV program early on. And then he had went to Murray State. I didn't hear from him for a long time. And then I started working at Channel 25, WHT. And he was working in creative services. And then eventually I moved into creative services from news. And we started making these little mini shorts that we had done. And that's where the Man Throw Stick logo and everything comes from, is one of those mini shorts we did. And he had come up with the music for that. And ever since then, I was like, oh, can you do music for the rest, all my other movies? And he kind of obliged, because he's like, yeah, that's great creative outlet for him. And he kind of likes doing that stuff. So all the music's done, with the exception of one song in the movie, is all done through by Daniel. But yeah, but Daniel's, the music choice was kind of all I was thinking, we should go with because he does, I don't know if he's still in a rock band. He was in a rock band at the time, but does a lot of rock and roll, plays guitar, plays the bass. So I was like, oh, we should do some kind of surf rock type sound to it. But kind of make it a little quirky as well. And I thought that was a good fit. And then the transition you were talking about, so that the transition where it's 3 days, I think I had originally scripted that in my head where it was going to start, where it's you're just seeing a phone and things are moving on the table just to show that there's been a progression of time. The one where he's driving though, and then it spins, that was Charlie, who's our editor, who was the editor on the movie. He kind of had come up with that whole idea of it spun. And I think partly with it was because that I had a C-STAM arm that we had mounted the camera to, so I could have somewhat steady shots in the car, because I didn't have a hi-hat or anything like that. So one time I think the camera did this, it tilted a little bit, and then I think Charlie saw that and was like, oh, what if the whole camera, what if the whole image spun when we did that? So we ended up throwing that into the movie, and I thought it was a pretty cool effect and kind of help show the progression of time a little bit better too.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
We did recognize a lot of the actors. We've worked with a few of them. Did you handpick them for everybody for the roles, or did you have auditions? And if you did any of them surprise you with their audition for a character?
So the ones that we handpicked, was Kevin, and then Leo and Joe. which I had already talked about. And then Olivia was sort of in the mix of being like, we didn't know what specifically she was going to play, but I knew I wanted her in the film. And it came down to like having, like, we had 3 specific female actor characters, one being Tiffany, one was Jessica, who's Pears' sister, and then we had the girl at the phone store. So in that role was hard to find because there weren't that many actresses that had auditioned for that role. And then we also had
The lawyer.
yeah, or not the lawyer, Hightower's
Sarah.
wife, Sarah. Sarah was the other. There were like 4 main female roles that we were trying to fill. In the back of my mind, I was like, I couldn't figure out who Derek was. Like, I wrote it kind of blind. Like, I don't know who this person's going to be. But I did kind of think of Jacob closer when we got making the movie. Jacob Walensky, who's another filmmaker in Evansville, who I think his recent films, Compression, that he's made. He's got some other films coming out that he's DP'd, but he doesn't usually get the chance to be in front of the camera, and it's like a cameo in one of his own films. So he thought that was a lot of fun. He enjoyed it, and he was kind of like, oh, it's a relief. I'm not behind the camera. I'm not having to make all the decisions. So I kind of started thinking, okay, maybe he could play that character, and he's the only one who I thought really fit that role. Is there anything that stuck out to you?
At one point, the lawyer character was kind of a toss-up whether we were going to cast it male or female at one point. And
because in the original script it was Simon, it wasn't Simone. And then we changed it to Simone when we ended up casting Alice. And she was like the best fit for that role. And I think also it came down to something where like we were trying to figure out who was going to play Hollis, who was going to play blanking on the name of a character that I wrote. The guy in the beginning of the movie, Jeff's character. What was Jeffrey's character? The Frank. It's like you wrote.
I know what you're talking
I don't know what you're talking about. Frank's, So the Frank Guthridge character.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out who was going to be that person.
The angry husband. Yeah.
Angry husband.
Yes.
The ironic part was that it ended up we had like 2 couples or something, like 2 or 3. We had 3 couples in the film. Was it 3 or 2? What am I thinking? How many? Yes. There's like multiple couples playing different people.
We had some people, we had couples that someone was behind the camera and someone was in front of the camera as well. So
but
we
like
had a few.
Yeah. So we had like Jacob and Emily, who ended up playing Sarah and Derek. Like that kind of just made sense from the start. And I kind of in my back of my mind thought maybe Emily could play that role. So that worked out for us. And then I think Frank, who plays the husband in the very beginning of the movie, is married, who's the actor's Jeff Dumont. He's married to Jillian Weisapple, who's plays Jessica. And so that just ironically worked. But what was funny is that we'd look at the audition tapes and we'd notice like, oh, this person knows this person because we could tell from the backgrounds and stuff like that. So that stuff was always fun.
Nice.
Yeah, and we really liked Kevin Roach as Eddie Hightower too. He's always great to work with.
Yeah.
Kevin, I think Kevin was also one that was like, I didn't originally think Kevin, or I wanted to avoid doing that because I know sometimes Kevin, may or may not want to always play the villain, but he's great at it. And Kevin's not really the villain in this movie, so it's sort of the villain. Not to spoil my own movie, but he's
not a great guy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he's got a great voice, and so I always love working with Kevin. He's just awesome.
So professional.
Yeah,
always.
But everyone usually notices, like, even my friend Charlie was like watching the movie. He's like, "Who's this guy that you have playing Hightower? He's really good." And I was like, "Oh, that's Kevin Roach. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's good." So
yeah, he's a great actor.
In here.
Wow, what a lovely home you have. What do you do for a living, if you don't mind my asking?
9 minutes.
Right. Okay. So, Hollis, Mr. Archer, he's been missing for the last few days. Do you know where he might be?
Did you say you were a private investigator?
Yeah, I'm just starting out. I actually have a business card.
I hired Mr. Archer to do some very delicate work for me.
I got my card right here, actually.
I don't like my affairs in the eyes of the public or under the nose of the law. Do you understand?
Perfectly.
Would you like a drink?
Why not? It's only 9 in the morning.
Keep your mouth shut, and I just might help.
My lips are stapled, sealed shut.
And Kevin Arnold was really good he has great comedic timing and stuff with his
Yeah.
performance.
And
of
I
that.
thought Leo and Joe as Sly and Richie, they just stole every
Oh
scene.
yeah, they were hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some spots in the script where Ryan was just like, and ad-lib.
Ad-lib,
And
just
they're
go.
just so good at it.
Oh
That's
yeah, Leo
the
teaches
line,
improv, right? So
Yeah.
we got the crockpot slow cooker.
Crockpot
line.
slow cooker's in there, but then I think he added to it. Like I think it was something like I had 3 bits in there where they're just sitting in the van and waiting for Perry to get out. So I wrote that intentionally, going, okay, this is what's in the script, but if you guys have anything to add to that, like, go ahead. And so I think the line that he says, "I never touched your sister." And then
Her
it's like
zipper.
her zipper, her dress. That was all Joe.
Her
That
zipper,
was
her
not in the
choice.
script.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh.
And then when they were at the hotel, the van is our van.
yeah.
And Kevin Arnold is supposed to leave the van at one point. Well, he's sitting where our son sits, and it was child locked. And so he tried to open it. Why isn't this opening? And Leo just like ad-libbed.
He's like,
sorry,
it's my sister's
van. And he just like opened it. We were like, that was so perfect, because that was not, we just thought it would open and it didn't.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you talked a little bit about the improv. So you had some stuff changed here and there. When anybody who's done filmmaking knows, once it's like the best laid plans, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Things change sometimes. So did anything else perhaps change from your initial script to reality?
So originally in the script, there was 2 roles there was almost like, it was almost like I wish I had wrote a third one in there, but there was like another scene where Kevin, instead of getting punched by the yoga teacher, he got punched by another woman. And originally in the script, I wrote it so I could, if I wanted to, I could put my kids in the background and they were like playing outside at a park, at like a playground or whatever. And I think the part of the reason I had changed that is because the roles were it was just felt like it was too similar of a beat to the grandma who is like he pees on and stuff. So I wanted to change it up a little bit. Like it's still kind of the same joke as like he's just doing his own little thing in this world, and then of course he offends or does something that he doesn't realize, and just because he's doing his thing, but he doesn't realize that other people are watching what he's doing. And so I changed it to yoga instructor mainly because my friend Alyssa Rhodes, who plays that character, she had been in one of my other short films back in Evansville called Misread. And I knew I wanted her involved. And eventually we ended up putting her in that role, and I had rewrote the character to be a yoga teacher. And so some of the dialogue had to change. And then and fortunately she was like, well, I actually teach a yoga class. So it all worked out, because then she could go, oh yeah, I can get like 3 of my friends to come, and they'll come and we'll do a little yoga. And I was just like, just pretend I'm impromptu yoga class right here, and his car is going to be here, so I'll shoot this one shot here. So it worked out perfectly. As far as anything else, is there anything else?
Added a couple scenes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Almost post-production-y.
Yeah. So we had to go back and shoot more, because I in my head there was a lot. I shot not as much as I probably should have shot. I probably shot minimal coverage on stuff. But also in doing so, when we cut the first cut of the film was like an hour long, and I knew I wanted to be a little bit longer than an hour. But I had always intended it to be in that 75 to 80 minute ballpark. So we also felt like there was some beats that were like, we kind of need this beat, and we were missing it. So after we had done the initial edit, I had talked to Charlie. We'd kind of come up with like, you should probably put a scene here, and we probably need something here. So we went back to Evansville at one point, and then we shot a scene where, because it was confusing, I think, for people, because they would watch it and they're like, well, wait, how does he know to go to this house? and I needed that scene of him like breaking into the computer, so we knew that like, okay, he figured out where this guy's address was, because that was kind of a question, like, where is Mr. Hightower? And that scene we actually just shot at Kevin's parents' house, even though it's not even the same house we shot originally. And then we actually had to reshoot that scene a little bit, or add a little bit more to it, so it made a little more sense. You might not be able to tell, but we had to like match the shot so it like looks pretty close to what we'd originally shot. So in that one was all ad libs too. There wasn't any line or dialogues. That was just me throwing ideas for lines and stuff. And then the other scene was we had Alice playing Simone as this lawyer character, and I just felt like it's weird if she just shows up one time in the movie and then never comes back ever after that, because she seems like a more important character. So I needed to, and I wanted to have some. There was also a little mistake that happened when we were shooting where there was a lot of like a scene went in, Kevin picks up the phone kind of thing. Well, the scene where he runs back upstairs after Hightower, is like, I can take your investigator's license. You're going to owe me his money. He goes back to his wallet, and then he was supposed to get a phone call from Jessica and be like, I'll be right there. Well, when we shot it, we forgot that part of the scene, and it was originally in the script. And so fortunately I was like, oh, well, we'll just cut a scene in between that, and then we can do that beat after. And then we went in kind of guerrilla style, went to USI and shot this one extra beat with Alice over the winter inside, because it was cold out. So we couldn't shoot in the summer, because the movie was shot kind of, it wouldn't have worked if we shot it outside in the cold. So we just went inside and just.
I mean, it is Indiana. It can be pretty. It can swing.
It could, but I think it would. There's a little cat. I think it could. I don't know if it would have worked out, but yeah, we ended up like sneaking in USI and shot a little scene of just kind of walking down the steps, and I actually really like that, how that scene turned out too.
Yeah,
so
it turned out well.
Yeah. So, any funny moments on set? I know, especially with comedies, sometimes it brings out a lot of humor in people. Anything funny happen?
Yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of silly things. What do you have a favorite one?
I'm gonna have to think about that for a second.
You can't think of one off the top of your head.
Yes. So we were at Hollis. No, not Hollis's. It would have been Tiffany's apartment, and that was actually Jeremy Brailford's place. And Ryan was like, go upstairs and we need to make like a pile of something that kind of looks like it could be a person. And so me and some of my friends went upstairs and we're like piling things on this desk chair. And I was like, look, there's a globe that's circular like a head. And then we found like a hat and we're like, put this hat on it. And it was just the silliest thing whenever we brought Ryan upstairs.
You guys were so proud.
We were so proud. And he was just like,
because we didn't have a proper set deck. Like Lily and our friend Jenny and our friend Crystal, they were kind of also the art department, so to speak. So they were doing all the makeup, all of the set deck, all the props and stuff. And so Jenny had brought a bunch of the props and stuff to do all that stuff. And then I was like, guys, just make this look like a girl's room, change this so we pretend like this. And I knew it wasn't going to be like the most perfect thing. So I was just like, whatever you guys can do, it's going to be great.
It's so silly in the movie.
It's
like,
silly.
Why would that ever be set up like that in someone's room? But it makes me laugh.
My favorite is when we were at the motel, though. That's probably so. The motel was a whole beast, because it's, as you guys are very much aware, living in Evansville, that area is very has a reputation. So we ended up Pears Avenue, yeah. So that whole area has a reputation. However, it's also got these really great locations where Evansville is just like, there's all these little cool pockets of Evansville that like people just kind of gloss over, but when you're like filming them, they're like, that's a cool location actually. And we ended up getting the Esquire Inn, and they agreed for us to film there. And they were the only thing they worried about was like if we were doing anything illegal. And of course, like you're bringing a film camera into a motel room, people are so we were like, no, it's not that kind of movie.
What's this Pears movie? What's a Pears of what?
Pears of what? Yeah.
Yeah, what is this about? So we kind of explained what the movie is about, and they were they were okay with us filming there. But they were actually very amenable, and they were really nice to us the whole time we were there.
We needed safety pins at some point, and I went to the front office, and they're like, "Yeah, here, you can have some." And I was like, "Thank you so much." They were really nice.
And the one I've told this story a bunch, but the one thing that I do remember happening was that the room that we had, I guess they had people in there and they had to kick them out, but they kind of had stayed around, which we thought was a little weird. And we're like, okay. And it was a guy and a girl, and the woman was like in her, what do you think? She looked like she was in her 50s, right? Like 50s, 60s ish. And she was sitting on a little, like, I don't know, a milk carton or something, just sitting there most of the day. And we were there from like noon to like midnight, I think. And at one point I had to leave, come back upstairs or something. And she was starting to put on makeup and like just making it and like putting lipstick on and everything. And then I didn't see her. I like all of a sudden she disappeared. I didn't see her, but then I kept hearing these noises coming from the hallway, and they were very loud. And we all kind of suspected something was amiss. But but that happened that night. And then later, though, we were later that day we were outside, and Kevin's shooting this monologue, and Lily's on the phone talking to Kevin so he could give the other line, so he knew the timing and everything. And I had shot it in a oneer. And it was getting late, and there wasn't as much light, and we had to do it multiple times because Kevin has to memorize. He's in the movie for probably 90. I think he's in almost every scene in the movie, if I'm not mistaken. And he has to memorize. You know, if you're that actor, you have to memorize every line. Luckily, he's like had that theater training, and he kind of can memorize things on the fly. But we had to do take after take a little bit. And at one point, it's the middle of summer, and there are birds chirping like only a few feet from us in this tree, and I had to run over and like do this really loud to get the birds to fly off so they would stop chirping and ruining the sound. So I run back, we're shooting the scene again, and I'm like sitting there and like very focused, watching Kevin, watching the screen, and Kevin's in the middle of the monologue, and Lily leans over, and like I hear more like this just in the background, and Lily leans over to me and she's like, "You're just like, he's trying to help." And I'm like, "I know, but he's running the shots."
Yeah, one of the guys from the motel was trying to scare the birds away, but his claps during Ryan's take was not the most helpful thing.
And I was just like, "It's fine." Like, but they were very helpful. Again, they were like, I could not stress enough how like helpful those guys were.
At one point they were like, "We need to turn the motel sign on," but they came in to check with Ryan because we were in the parking lot, and they were like, "We don't want to mess up your shot, but it's getting dark, so we need to turn it on." And Ryan's like, "Actually, can I like film the sign when you turn it on?"
Cool, yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, you get all set up and you tell us when to turn it on."
Yeah.
They were so nice.
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 That's one of probably one of my favorite shots too, because
that's one cool thing I noticed when we filmed here in Evansville is that everybody is so helpful and so nice and so gracious.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to get that in LA, or I don't know how Atlanta is for filming, how friendly they are towards it, but because I know once you get like a lot of film stuff, people get a little tired of it sometimes because it's happening constantly.
Atlanta, it's very
I think they have different expectations.
Yeah, the expectation is like, I need money up front. Like they want their money. And then a lot of places are not. There's like this stigma in Atlanta specifically that people are like, "Go back to LA." And I'm just there and I'm like, I've never been to LA, so I can't really go back. And there are a lot of people that they assume, they're like, "Oh, are you from here?" And I'm like, "No, I'm from Indiana," but like,
and they're like,
here.
"Where's Indiana?"
Yeah,
I don't even know where that is on a map. It's so funny how people like just don't know where that is.
Yeah, but I mean, I live here and we're working and stuff.
You want to ask the last question, Julie?
Sure. Do you have any filmmaking tips that you'd like to share with our audience that might be helpful for filmmakers who are just starting out?
I think the one that I think like a lot of people hear, especially from more famous filmmakers and stuff, they will always say, "Just do it." And I think that's like probably the best advice I can give to anybody is just, you got to do it yourself. But I would even go further and just say, like, start with a great script, come up with a good story, study good storytelling. There's a director mentor that I know who one of his piece of advice is study art, because that'll give you composition, study music so that you understand rhythm. And then, of course, study classical literature because that'll kind of teach you storytelling. And those are kind of like the three, and it's interesting. Those are the three arts that he brings up a lot. And I think that's a good start, but but I think the best way to like really learn and understand what you're doing is like just go out and do it yourself. And you don't have to have like the most expensive equipment or all the money in the world to do it. You can, there's people now that are just shooting things on like DV tape and like old technology just to get a kind of a different feel for it. But really when it comes down to it, I think sometimes it's not what you do, but the story that you're telling that really kind of makes what you do shine. Like I remember when I worked in news and there was like news stories that I do, and like it didn't matter how good I edited the thing or whatever I did. It was like, as long as the story like stuck out and it was a really compelling story, people really like liked that kind of stuff. And so I like I said, I think it's mainly like focus on story, but like just go out and do it. You got any advice?
Yeah. From like a non-professional producer, a couple things: be patient because the process just takes its own timeline. Know who, like, gather people around you that you can trust and that are willing to really like help and be dedicated to your project. And then don't be afraid to ask if you need things or if you need help, because, someone might say no, but they may say yes. And then you may have a really cool location or you can have a really great actor willing to join your project.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
Thanks.
I should try that.
Great advice.
You should try that. Yeah.
So the movie right now, you can find it. We watched it on Amazon Prime. Is there anywhere else to find it, or is that the main spot?
It is going to, I keep telling people, it is going to be on Tubi. I don't know when it'll be on Tubi. I'm hoping sometime in April. But they don't tell you when you go through. We distribute it through Film Hub, so they don't necessarily tell you when it's going to be up. They tell you have a license with somebody. So supposedly it will be on Tubi. When it does, I don't know. But
that goes back to the being patient.
Yes,
it's on its own
That's
timeline.
what I should try.
Yeah,
I should do that.
Yeah. But you can rent or buy it right now over at Amazon Prime. So
yes,
encourage everybody to check it out. Is there any other upcoming projects either that you're working on or you're planning out or anything you'd like to mention?
I'm working on a script right now. I don't know if that's going to be another one I produce or if I'm going to try to sell this script. I'm not sure yet. It's just, starting to form into a thing where I'm like, I don't think we can do this for $3,000, which is fine, but I want to finish that story. So I'm working on that. And then I do have a friend, he has a proof of concept that I shot for him, that he directed, but I was the DP on. It was called Bishop's Day. And that's starting to be in some different festivals, soon. So, but yeah, that's really all I've got currently going on as far as the film world goes.
Awesome. All right. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to go on and say thanks so much for being on the show, Ryan and Lily.
Thank you.
And good luck on your future film projects. We hope everyone enjoyed the show. And if you're looking for more filmmaker interviews, be sure to check out our past episodes. And please let us know if you enjoyed this episode and what other guests you might like us to have in the future.
Yep. I think that's a wrap for today's episode. So until next time.
Bad monkey.